hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I, of course, am Mr. Warren Hayes. Thank you very much for being here. We are going to talk about professional wrestling on this day where we recorded live on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes on September 15, 2022. And yes, as I mentioned, recorded live on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes. And maybe right now you're listening to the video on demand, which is probably, you know, a good chance of what you're doing. If you are, thank you very much. And leave a like on the video. I appreciate it a great deal. Subscribe to the channel as well. That way you won't miss a thing as to what, all the things that I do here on the channel, which aren't that much. It's me talking about pro wrestling, but still, you'll never miss an occasion where I'm talking about pro wrestling. How about that? If you subscribe to the channel, that stuff helps out a great deal. And if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast application, thank you very much as well. Doesn't the audio sound great? Well, I think it could sound better, but I'm still working on it. Trust me. Leave a 5-star review. If you leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or a 5-star rating on Spotify or whatever kind of love you can show on your app of choice, I would appreciate it a great deal. And again, thank you in advance. Why not? Yeah, that kind of stuff is fantastic. If this is your first time here, thank you very much. And join the club, join the family, join the Discord that I have as well, the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord. The link is in the description, especially if you like talking about pro wrestling and pop culture. There's a lot of conversations, some great people that hang out there. We've got a nice, big, juicy Discord server just for you. Come on in. I'd love to have you, love to get to know you, love to talk pro wrestling with you. Thank you so very much. And a good way to show some support as well for the Mr. Warren Hayes Show is to become a member of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show YouTube channel. And if you do, you get access to the members only podcasts. Why did I stutter? The members only podcast and exclusive stuff just for members. And you can do it like right now. Just hit the join button and you're free to go. You're right in. You can do it exactly right there where and open yourself up to a whole new universe of Mr. Warren Hayes. But look, as it stands right now, we are going to be talking about pro wrestling, right? And we're going to be talking about, look, I'm going to do a pretty deep dive into last night's Dynamite because I think there was still a lot of things that were very newsworthy. We're going to be talking about ratings, which I don't do very much here on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I don't consider myself a ratings expert, but there are some significant ratings events that happened this week as far as TV ratings. This is what I'm talking about, of course, TV ratings for Dynamite, for Raw, that I think we need to talk about. A little update on what I feel about the Triple H era. The Young Bucks sending out feelers, the PWI 500, and more. Thank you for being here. Let's get right to it. We are going to be talking about a whole bunch of things tonight, but before we do, let's say something nice about Bill Goldberg. If I can, there we go. This will actually work now. There we go. Okay. Now let's say something nice about Bill Goldberg. Why is it? And now we're going to say something nice about Bill Goldberg.
Warren Hayes has 52 nice things to say about Goldberg.
As many people this week griped about Jon Moxley not being #1 on the PWI 500 list, Goldberg unquestionably felt good that nobody ever had that expectation for him.
Yeah. Warren Hayes has 52 nice things to say about Goldberg.
What a fucking mess. But in the meantime, we're going to start with the weekly wrestling inspection. Let's kick this off this week by chatting about AEW Dynamite. How about that? Because I think that everything sort of flows from there. We're gonna start it off. It's been a couple of weeks there that I've started the show doing the Dynamite review instead of keeping it at the end. Excuse me, and I kind of like it. I like it. I enjoy it. I enjoy the flow. I don't feel too rushed to get through it. So let's get to it. Last night's Dynamite, excuse me, on of course December 14, 2022. which I did not say. I would not say that it was my favorite Dynamite. I thought it was a very poor Dynamite. Isn't that interesting, though? I thought it was a bit of a letdown. Didn't think it was all that hot. Didn't think the matches were really up to par. But I think for some reason, everything just felt flat. Everything just felt very level throughout. And outside of the main event, it really felt like everyone was doing what they had to do, you know, like punch in, punch out type of situation. And that was that. And you know, I will definitely say that the live crowd probably didn't help. I don't think the Albany crowd was a good crowd last night, but I also think that it was a show that just didn't deliver on the heights that a AEW Dynamite usually can. Not that there wasn't without moments, but as opposed to most weeks, you know, where I sit here and I'm rubbing my hands and I'm going, "We're spoiled, motherfuckers," you know. That's not necessarily something that I would say this week. Not necessarily. But we're still going to talk about it anyway. And we're still going to start off. The show started off with one of the two matches for the Grand Slam Tournament of Champions. One of the two semifinal matches is what I'm trying to say. Jon Moxley defeated Sammy Guevara. And this was fine. It was fine, but it was not one of these hot Dynamite matches that kicks off Dynamite. You know, it's like what I fancy myself saying week after week, right? Is that Dynamites are bookended, usually with a very hot opener and a hot finishing match, and it didn't kick off. It sort of happened, like, again, nothing specifically necessarily wrong with the match, but it kind of happened. It was put together and it was fine. Mox won and he advances, and I don't think there were any surprises there. No swerves that suddenly out of nowhere Sammy pulled off the surprise win or anything like that. It wasn't, you know, we kept it very Occam's razor. About a 13-minute-ish match. I don't know what else I would have done here. Should it have been as competitive as it was? I don't know. It's just really weird to me. But look, it's fine. Moxley went forward. It was what everyone in the world was expecting. It was okay, despite the fact that Sammy screamed into a microphone for a promo on the Road 2 show, which is very, very divisive. Have you seen the promo I'm talking about? It's been very, very divisive. And, you know, and to be honest, in my circles and, you know, on what the people I hang out with, excuse me, and on my timeline, all near universal hatred for it, you know. And while I thought it wasn't necessarily Sammy's best foot forward, I didn't think it was a disaster either. I think a lot of people hated it because it's Sammy. And I think Sammy he's at this point here where he's exhausted a lot of goodwill, and he doesn't have much wiggle room to go forward. But I thought the promo was very screamy, and I think that's what annoyed me the most. It was just a lot of shouting, a lot of screamy, a lot of hate. Control your energy, right? It's like, let it come out in bursts. Control yourself better. He weighed into, oh, well, I was on vacation too. I was supposed to be on vacation too, and so on and so forth. And I show up to shit, and I do this and that. And I'm like, and it didn't connect. Like none of it really came together. But I don't think it was like as terrible a promo as people let it on to be. Especially when just on Monday night we had the Dominic and his promo. Anyway, it wasn't a great promo. I didn't like it, but not as much as people are just completely destroying it. I don't know. Anyway, this whole thing happens. The match happens. Mox wins. We're good. Then MJF hits the ring for a promo. He delivers a promo that is a very good promo. Again, if there's one thing that you can count on Maxwell to do and do it well, it is to deliver an impassioned, proper promo that feels like a promo and gets the job done. And the Albany crowd, of course, are happy to see him. But he decides he takes control of that situation there. And he says, he tells them to shut up. And he calls them poor. And I thought that was so funny. Because you're poor. You don't understand these things because you're poor. All right. It's the class wars that are going on right now. He says that... he tells Mox, actually, that the MJF that he's fighting today is, do you see a podium, right? Do you see a little sign that says MJF 2020? No. I'm not the same MJF anymore. This isn't it. And then he brings up John Moxley's alcoholism. And I'm going to tell you, this is how you do it, right? I think he brought it up in a very expert fashion, because he calls him out for his drinking, right? But he also puts over the fact that John went to rehab and overcame it, right? And I thought, and so that was a nice touch. But then he brings it back and uses that nonetheless in his promo, where he says that John might have slain his demons and beaten his disease, but MJF's brain is stronger than his disease. And MJF is depending on who you're talking to, MJF is a demon. He, being John Moxley, cannot slay, which I thought was expertly done. And it goes right into what a lot of people found out recently, but that Chris Jericho talked about in one of his books, right? Where when you cut a promo on a guy, you don't want to bury the guy. You don't want him to come off as a complete goof, because then you're just beating goofs, right? So this was very classic textbook promo from MJF saying, look, yes, you've had these things. I think you've had this situation happen to you. You overcame it, but I'm still better than you because of this. And I think that was textbook. I think that was very, very, very well done. Putting the guy over without outright burying him, that would not have been good for him, regardless. By the way, congratulations to MJF and his girlfriend Naomi on their engagement. That was, it appeared today on the social media. And and I love how MJF tweeted it. He said, and I quote, "Ladies panicking on my TL today, don't worry. Just because there's a goalie doesn't mean you can't score." Outstanding stuff. Like, he's a heel even to his fiance. You have to appreciate the level of commitment. I think it's hilarious. What a line. Anyway, back to the promo. Basically he tells Jon Moxley, look, you wanted to take a vacation, take the vacation you wanted to take, and don't show up at Arthur Ashe. Right? That's all you have to do. And this, of course, will lead us into the following promo. But just before we wrap this up here, just a few thoughts. Do you think? And I'd love to hear what you guys think. If you're listening, if you're live here right now, drop some stuff in the chat. If you're listening to this later, video on demand, drop a comment. I'd love to hear what you think. Do you think that people are reacting so positively to MJF because we're happy to see him back, but also we kind of feel bad because of what CM Punk's antics have taken away from him? I talked about it last week on the whole thing, and there was so much stuff, right? Maybe it got lost in the shuffle a little bit, but I think one of the biggest tragedies from the whole CM Punk scrum and eventual suspension is that MJF ends up losing out on what would have likely been the career-defining program for him, like something, one of the biggest programs of his career, not up to date, if not the biggest, because it was clear moving forward. Clear to me, as you know, I'm a Occam's razor kind of guy when it comes to booking. More often than not, became clear to me that after All Out, before the scrum, when CM Punk regained the title, that we were heading towards CM Punk MJF 3. But in the meantime, the whole thing happened, and now MJF is out of this program, right? And maybe, at least for me, but I'm wondering if this isn't part of the reaction, right? I feel like there's a part of us that are excited to see him because we do feel a little bad for him. You know, we're like, brother, we're with you, and you should get the title. You should get some kind of retribution here on some level. And even if it's not in the way that was originally planned by Tony Khan and to get us to CM Punk MJF again for the big one, for the title, for one that, ultimately mattered. Because don't forget, MJF came out to stare down CM Punk in the middle of the ring after the All Out main event. Like this was the trajectory. And I mean, like, we're with how the promos are being constructed, and last week, MJF and Jon Moxley sort of locking eyes and so on and so forth, and then MJF again talking shit on Jon Moxley again this week, but never really bringing up Danielson, right? Is it too obvious at this point that the match that we're getting for Full Gear is Jon Moxley versus MJF? Is that what's happening? Is Arthur Ashe next week, is it going to be Jon Moxley winning again, getting the title strap back on him, only perhaps, maybe, probably to lose it again to MJF lose it again, but for the first time to MJF is what I'm trying to say, at Full Gear. Maybe that's where we're going. You know, because I kind of feel like that's the biggest match that AEW has out of the pocket right now. And Full Gear's going to be upon us faster than y'all realize, right? It's coming in. It's coming in soon. So there has to be some setup happening here as well. I wouldn't be disappointed. Look, I wouldn't be disappointed if it was MJF versus Danielson. I really wouldn't. Fresh match, right? Let's fucking go. I'm good for that. But as far as being a drawing match, well, because it has to be, you have to have, I think, a main event that will draw at this point. Because let me pull up here. Yeah, there we go. Let me pull this up here. All Out right now, as it stands, the number of pay-per-view buys that has been estimated over at WrestleNomics based on early results, based on what Meltzer has on. WrestleNomics, our boy Brandon Thurston and company, have estimated the buys to be in the range of 139,000 for All Out 2022, which, unsurprisingly, we had all predicted this. It was inferior to All Out 2021. Of course, different set of circumstances, so on and so forth. But even for me, it ended up being lower than what I expected. And if many of you will recall my argument, right? I had said, you know, I had talked about like my low ball being around 145,000 buys, and we're at 139, right? And it's still an estimate, it's not final, still could grow a little. But as it stands right now, we're on the low end of the spectrum, and I feel like I overshot it a bit, which went into my, like, the other thought that I have is like, well, let's see what happens when you pull out a pay-per-view and you don't have your main event booked. I was of the theory, I was saying, look, we'll see how the buys go, and if we get a high high buy rate, it's not a buy rate anymore, but if we have a high number of buys, I keep saying buy rate like it's 1996. If we have a high number of buys, then it will be an indicator, at least to me, that the main event of a show doesn't necessarily translate into automatic buys. You don't need weeks of build for a main event for people to buy it. Now, maybe looking back on this, be like, well, maybe announcing your main event 4 days before your pay-per-view, 5 days, it's not necessarily the best idea. Maybe it's not the best strategy. Maybe you should go forward and, you know, give us a good, proper, strong main event weeks beforehand and build the excitement, because clearly there's still part of that. Like, I'm still of the belief that most people don't buy pay-per-views weeks in advance. They'll buy it the day of. They'll buy it the day before. I don't think people... because you don't have to call your cable company anymore and then have to go down to the cable company office to pick up a box or a little dongle to add onto your television to watch the show. You know, it's like, it's not that anymore. You don't even have to, all you need is a Fire Stick or a Chromecast to toss it on your TV now, you know, if you're watching it on BR Live or on Fight, wherever. But this, my thought that maybe you don't need a main event, all that. Well, maybe you do. Maybe you do need a little more proper build. You know, I think there could be a bit of I think there's something to learn out of all of this, because honestly, I thought it was going to do around the same buys as Double or Nothing, which was at 155,000. I thought we were going to be in Double or Nothing territory. I did not expect it to go as low as to go under 145. I really didn't. And yes, as it's mentioned in the chat, Tony Khan blamed WWE for it, but that's a load of horse pucky to me. You know, like if he wants to invent Triple H coming after him with an afternoon show on the WWE award-winning Peacock that no one has to buy unless you're already subscribed, like what, $5 a month? What is it? How much is it to subscribe to Peacock in the United States? I don't even know. Like I don't think it mattered. You know, I don't think it was that big of an impediment, because I think that an AEW fan, I don't think an NXT show drained views from an AEW program. I think there might have been crossover, might have been people going in there for like who watched both. I watched both. Of course, I'm special, but what I'm saying is that I would argue that most people who would watch an NXT/WWE show probably wouldn't watch an AEW show regardless, right? Because on top of that, you have to pay for the AEW show, which isn't the case for WWE because you're already paying your subscription to the Peacock to be able to watch Parks and Rec and The Office. See, okay, $5 or $10. So there's two tiers, right? So I mean, like that I find it difficult to believe that WWE programming a Worlds Collide show on the WWE Peacock in the afternoon, hours before the start time of the pre-show of All Out, made a dent in the pay-per-view buys. I don't buy it. If it did, then it didn't burn away like 15,000 buys. I'm sorry, I can't buy it. I can't subscribe to that. Anyway. Look, we'll see what happens moving forward in regards to, of course, there'll be more, these numbers will fluctuate as over the next few months, over the next trimester or so, because it takes a while to get cable buys information. I don't think it's going to be that much of a significant change. I think Brandon on the upper end estimates it'll probably go around maybe 152, 155,000, which is where I thought it would go in the first place, but I don't think it's going to go that high. So yeah, so we'll see what happens moving forward. But all in all, the All Out experiment of coming into the show without a main event set until 4 or 5 days before the pay-per-view, I think that experiment may have proven to be a little may have proven to have eaten at the success of the pay-per-view a little bit. I think the way it was handled. I liked the way it was done. Don't get me wrong. I liked it. But maybe it's just because you like it, Warren, doesn't mean it's best for business. Warren, you're such a poop. You just suck all the air out of the room and then make it no fun. Okay, go away now. So let's go back to Dynamite now, since we went on that aside. Once MJF is done talking about Jon Moxley, he introduces Stokely Hathaway and The Firm. And Hathaway comes in with his ragtag group of gentlemen that he's been collecting over the past few weeks. And he says, look, he says MJF is his best friend. MJF wanted to quit AEW, but he flew from Orlando to New York to talk with MJF and convinced him to stay, because if MJF left, he'd be giving all these people, he'd be giving them exactly what they wanted. He says this group here that he's accumulated are the group is Max's support system. So it's not a new group for MJF. It's not a new stable for MJF. It's not Pinnacle 2 kind of thing, but rather people MJF can call to when needed. And this really fits MJF's character, like to a T at this point, right? Because he's always surrounded himself with hangers-on, and they all sort of shit on him, right? They eventually just like, the inner circle, all of that thing, when they turned their backs on him. The Pinnacle, Wardlow, all turned their backs on him, except maybe Sean Spears. We don't know exactly what happened there, but the whole groups, all the groups that he's been associated with, they all ended up backstabbing him, two-timing him, and let's not forget, even while he was in these groups, he'd be paying off guys who aren't in the group to do dirty work, right? Like he'd hire Butcher and the Blade to do bullshit and whatever. So I like this because it really fits MJF's character, where he's like, you know what? Having some backup is good, but we're not allies, we're not pals, the support system, right? And I wouldn't mind, at some point MJF pulling out a big stack and handing it to Stokely, like, there, thank you for beating up this jabron here. And Stokely's like, you're welcome, and then everyone goes away, So I think all of this works. Anyway, Stokely, back to Stokely. He says it's everything he's done since Double or Nothing has been a con to infiltrate the system. From, as he said, from kicking it with Dr. Britt Baker to watching reruns of Living Single with the House of Black. How is this not one of the greatest lines you have heard on television in a long, long time? God, that was funny. And then what he does, he turns around and he runs down all the motivations for all the guys in his group. He says, Morrissey, he can do anything he wants to do, anything he wants. That's his motivation. And on top of that, Stokely loves him. Lee Moriarty, he wants the pure title. The Guns, they want to escape from the shadow of their broke-ass daddy, as Stokely said. And Ethan Page, he wants to make Canada proud and go for the All-Atlantic title. And there's a lot of people who didn't like this promo. A lot of people really didn't like this promo. Maybe because it was a little too long. I think there could have been a bit of an abridged version that could have worked just as well. But I'm going to tell you what I keep out of this, why I overall will maintain a positive outlook in regards to this Stokely promo, is that here you go. What we have here is a perfect mid-card stable of guys who are going to be working together and who all have paths. They all have goals. They all have something they want to attain. I'm going to tell you one thing. Here's something that's really, really interesting that I really like, and it's just the fact that Stokely was there with these guys, and these guys have clear targets for titles. It's going to make those mid-card titles, their secondary titles, whatever you want to call them, it's going to make them feel important. It's going to make the pure title feel important. It's going to make the All-Atlantic title feel important. For weeks, I'm going to be, the All-Atlantic title, it's never on television. I don't care about it, blah, 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 blah. Why do I care about the pike in the All-Atlantic title? Well, now you'll be able to care. Because you've got one guy who's like, and you know what that means? That suddenly feels important. feels like then the other titles matter, just not the top belt. All the other titles matter. Why do you think Paul Levesque on his Monday and Friday night shows has been reestablishing the US title and the Intercontinental title with these video packages, recapping the history of both and highlighting the great champions that make up the legacy of these belts? Well, because he wants them to feel important. He wants them so when Sheamus fucking fights Walter at Clash at the Castle Clash at the Castle, Clash towards the Castle, Clash into the Castle, it feels important. It's like, okay, Sheamus wants it and it's good because it's a good belt. Well, there you go. That's what we're doing here. I think the outcome here is much better than, trying to pick apart and say, oh, well, because there was probably a way to tighten everything up for sure. Probably. Very much so, I'd say. Want to say hello to YouTube fan? Nice to see you, YouTube fan. Welcome to the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. And Joseph With It, member of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Nice to see you and welcome. Then we got a match. Jungle Boy defeated Jay Lethal. I thought this match was very just a going through the motions kind of thing. It's like, I think if there was a match that perfectly defined how I felt about the entirety of last night's Dynamite, I think it's this one. It just felt flat, And Jungle Boy wins with the snare trap. That's not a problem, I understand. But again, I wonder, and this is just me wondering, right? Had we, because I feel like there's a disconnect now. Beans and toast match. I like, you know what? I'm gonna steal that. I'm gonna co-opt that. A beans and toast match. That's exactly what that was. Thank you, Cookies Guy. Your legacy in the Mr. Warren Hayes Show is going to be preserved now moving forward. This was a beans and toast match. Because, and I think there's a disconnect now in regards to, I really think there's a disconnect now in regards to how Jungle Boy should be positioned at this point, as opposed to where he was going into All Out, where, felt momentum and I get it. He was supposed to get his big win on Christian Cage, but he got attacked by Luchasaurus, and that already, and I don't, you can twist this around as much as you want to try and make it feel logical, and oh yeah, Warren, it all makes sense, it all connects, and it's all, but the whole Luchasaurus thing, I still think it's fishy, it's iffy, it doesn't feel like a solid addition. It doesn't feel like a solid twist. It just feels like we don't know exactly what to do anymore, and then we're going. So I feel like there's a disconnect now, where had he won with Christian Cage, had he won the match and got him, got over the hurdle, we'd be going in here and people would be on their feet and we'd be like, Jungle Boy, yeah, here he goes, Reign of Terror continues. But now it feels like he never got over the hump, right? Which, again, I think is doubly strange that he got the win over Christian instead of, look, if they wanted Luchasaurus to come in and do the heavy lifting and take the bumps and so on and so forth, I think there would have been a way for Jungle Boy to overcome the odds and get the win over Christian in a quick, safe way so that Christian doesn't further injure himself, and then move on. But, you know, Jungle Boy, I think, and I think we felt it here. I think he's another loser from All Out. Another guy, and when I say loser, I don't mean he's a loser, he's terrible. That's not in the sense that as someone who had a who suffered a lost opportunity, not because of CM Punk this time, not because of, you know, just someone flipping their lid, and getting suspended. Christian's injury is terrible, and of course we hope Christian a speedy recovery. We hope surgery goes well, and so on and so forth. I'm mostly thinking of him as a character, as a wrestler in the midst of a push. It sort of feels like we're slipping into plan B here. You know, it's like, well, plan A sort of, fuck. But no, okay, we're going to go into plan B. And no mention of Luchasaurus, no mention of Christian. Well, no, they mentioned, but when I say mention, like he didn't show up. They didn't push that angle. And I think that sucks. I think because he's a victim of circumstance as well. Different circumstances, but a victim nonetheless. We then get a training video for Hook and Action Bronson. And again, if you're excited for this, all the more power to you. Look, I've been talking about it. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but yeah, look, at this point, you know how I feel about non-wrestlers coming in to beat up wrestlers. It's fine. I have nothing against Action Bronson. And then I think this is the surprise, the moment of the night. This is the one that no one saw coming. We have Alex Marvez backstage. Marvez, who's back doing a lot of backstage interviews. Look at him go, our boy Alex Marvez. And he is interviewing Luigi Primo. And I laughed so hard when I saw him, because this is the guy, if you hang around Twitter, even on wrestling Twitter, even remotely, you probably saw from a couple of weeks ago this clip from a match of a guy in a ring twirling what looks like pizza dough, right? Like a pizza, but you know, it's not real pizza dough, it's phony, but it looks like pizza dough. And he's twirling it as he's wrestling, right? An irony wrestler. Character based. Isn't that what the casuals want? They want character based wrestling, right? Well, there you go. You have Luigi Primo, who makes it the pizza. I'm not making this up in case you're thinking I'm being stupid right now. This is what he says. And Marvez is there and he's interviewing him, which means that Luigi Primo is going to be on an episode of AEW Dark very, very soon. Next week, in fact. And I'm thrilled for the guy. Like, if he can go and get himself a payday on Dark, I think it's great. And Marvez turns to him to interview him, but Luigi can't get a word in. Ethan Page just runs in and he kicks him straight in the face, and Primo just like, he just falls out of frame in the most. I don't know if they rehearsed this, if they planned the camera shot this perfectly, but it is cinema. That's what I'll say. And Page is, as the chat is saying, he's not having anything of what's going. None of this nonsense. These unserious wrestlers. He's a serious wrestler, and he wants to wrestle seriously. So he wants to start down the road to the All Atlantic title. Who's the first wrestler that comes to challenge him? Danhausen. So you're going from the guy twirling pizza dough in the ring to the fucking, creature feature host it's great. I like as far as this scene goes, this moment goes, I think it's great. And you know what but legitimately, like, you know, and I see the chat going, you know, Paige, you know, what a sourpuss. Ethan doesn't like pizza, you know, his pizza wasn't ready in 20 minutes or less. But you see, I think this could do a lot of good for Ethan Page to establish himself as a maybe a more serious wrestler type character if he's deciding to go after if he's more grounded, right? So he's like, I have no time for this nonsense. Oh, you want to fight me? You know, face painted weirdo who puts on quote unquote curses. All right, let's fucking go. If he can see, he'll be elevating himself over a lane. You remember when I like to talk about lanes in wrestling? He'll be moving into another lane. And I think it makes sense. That's how you build someone. So if he's like, no, I'm going to face Pac. Look, he's going to face Pac. Maybe, probably, unless Orange Cassidy has something to do with it. But let's say Pac is the most serious man on planet Earth. Like no one laughs with Pac. There's no laughter with Pac. It's all business. It's always business. You know it's always business because the man always wears gear. He does not have civilian clothes. He doesn't have jeans. He doesn't have a t-shirt. He never wears his merch to the ring. He's always in gear. Pac is serious business. So, of course, Ethan Page is like, I don't have time for Luigi Primo, the pizza twirler. I like the pizza. What the fuck is this? That guy's rate, though, going through the roof. Primo? After this? Everyone's going to want him. Everyone's going to want him. GCW right now, kicking themselves for not bringing him on the tour of England. Anyway, they need to do a tour of Italy next. We'll see how well that goes over. Maybe he'll be a heel. You know? They show us clips of Darby Allin riding a tricycle at the Nitro Circus. And I'm like, okay, doing stunts, you know. And this leads into Matt Hardy challenging him for a match. And look, I don't want this. I don't want this. Like, seriously. And maybe there's someone in the chat right now who's like, Warren, this is the match. This is the rematch I absolutely want to see. Because we've had this. It's like, I love these matches. They're still good. But I'm like, why I don't want I'm going to talk about it in a wee bit, just a little bit. So I'm holding my tongue because there's a bunch of thoughts that I had that are all going to tie into something here. Now, why the hell are we doing Darby Allin and fucking Matt Hardy? Why are we doing this? Matt Hardy. We just have to come to the conclusion that Matt Hardy's best days are more than behind him. They're good and gone. I don't want to see Matt Hardy wrestle anymore. It's fine. I don't think he has anything more to give in a ring in regards to things that could interest me. I am not interested in a Matt Hardy Darby Allin rematch. Absolutely not. Powerhouse Hobbs defeats Matt DiMartino in a squash. Our boy got spine busted right through the canvas. After the match, Hobbs cuts a promo saying that the chapter of Ricky Starks in the book of Hobbs is closed and he's ready to move on. But, and he's saying these things without having checked with Ricky Starks, who walks through the audience as the people were chanting, we want Ricky, we want, well, there you have him. And Ricky Starks comes to the ring, comes after him, they throw hands. So no, we're not done here. Now again, I just want to connect the dot here. Just want to connect something here. I still think, to this day right now, I still think that Hobbs should not have won over Ricky Starks at All Out. I still think that was his moment. And everyone was telling me, Warren, it's just because they want to continue the feud. They want to continue. Yes, my pay-per-views should not, like, these matches should not be angles in disguise. We should have resolution. We should have principle, important story bumps, which is not what we got. I have very clear feelings on All Out 2022. Very mixed bag for me. And if this could have worked, and honestly, they should have done this last week. I don't know why they waited a full week to bring back Ricky Starks, because Ricky Starks is a guy they should be banking on. Ricky Starks is a guy they should be banking on. Again, I'm gonna just hold my tongue just a little bit because we're gonna get to it. And I also I want to get through this Dynamite review as well. Swerve and Our Glory successfully retained their AEW World Tag Team titles against the Lucha Brothers. I thought the final third of this match was good. Everything else was fine. But I think it was like after the commercial, right? The final third of the match just hit another gear, and I was like, okay, this is what should have happened like throughout the match, right? The Made in Japan by Penta, but Keith Lee's on the floor, and he's got Ray Phoenix in a gorilla press, and he gorilla presses him back into the ring to break up the pin, which was fantastic. Phoenix with the avalanche Spanish fly to take Strickland out, which allows Penta to jump off the back of Ray Phoenix and onto Keith Lee to hit a Canadian destroyer. And we all jumped out of our seats. If none of you jumped out of your seats when that happened, I will assume that you are unable to walk, which is unfortunate, and I feel bad. But the rest of you don't have an excuse. Hell of a move. But the champs retain regardless. And the Acclaim come out to cut a promo on the champs before the big rematch at Arthur Ashe next week. We get Pac backstage talking to Alex Marvez, and he gets blindsided by Orange Cassidy, who attacks him from behind. That's weird. That is probably the most non-Orange Cassidy thing. I can't be wrong in feeling that. I was like, this doesn't work. This is not Orange Cassidy. This is weird. Strange. Then we had Dr. Britt Baker and Serena Deeb defeating Athena and Toni Storm. This, again, another strong, very, very, very strong women's match where everyone showed up and everyone did some fantastic stuff. Deeb and Storm to start things off, I thought was just fantastic. But they performed in front of a dead crowd, like the deadest crowd. And I can't even blame the crowd for being this dead to a degree, because I said it from the get-go, I didn't think the Albany crowd was all that good. But the state of their women's division shows the level of disinterest, right? It just shows. It shows right there. And it also showed in last night's ratings, where the women's quarter hour, this match was the only quarter hour to have a significant drop from quarter to quarter, a quarter to quarter change of 10%, from quarter hour 7 to quarter hour I can't remember which ones. I forget. Don't quote me on the number. Look, from the previous quarter hour to that one, a 10% drop. It's the only one that's sunk. And why do you think that is? It's not because these women aren't good pro wrestlers. It's because they have a boss who doesn't care. And here's the thing, and I want to be clear about this. Women's wrestling in North America right now is in the mud. There's no one who does it right. There's no one in any promotion who is doing it properly. Talking about the two main on cable, okay? Just to be clear here. But even on the indies, okay? This is something I've been crowing since I've started doing podcasting. If you make anyone feel important as a promoter who's booking matches, who's pushing wrestlers, you make anyone feel important, the audience will get that and they will get behind you. They will get behind the wrestler. They will get behind what you're doing. Right now, Tony Khan has no time for the women. It shows. It shows. It's transparent. So the women are there are a second, a third, a fourth afterthought. So when they come on TV, the quarter hours tank, people don't know how to react. Because there is no time that is given to build these women properly. The other promotion, they have their own problems. But AEW, this is specifically what the problem is. And right now, Tony Khan has the perfect opportunity to lean into the women's division, to elevate women that are in that division right now, while he's suspended anyway, 4 of his top acts in the company. 3 top acts, 4 guys. And if we're scrambling and what can we do? Who should we push next? What are we going to do? You've got women here that the audience want to see, and probably that don't even know that they want to see, because you haven't been pushing them as attractions. Tony Khan has been putting them on television because he feels like he has to, and it shows. But he has the perfect opportunity here to lean into new talent. Let's go. Let's try something out. Because we don't have the Bucks. We don't have Kenny Omega. We don't have CM Punk either. Who are we going for next? Are we all going to turn around and MJF? Of course, we're going to turn to MJF. We're going to turn to John Moxley. We're going to turn to the stalwarts. But who else? This is an opportunity, and an opportunity to lean into guys as well. I'm talking about the women, but also to guys who could be game changers at this point, like Darby Allin. But Darby Allin is being sent back to have a feud with Matt Hardy? Is this what we're talking about? Is this what we're doing? Jungle Boy? Let's kind of have him beat Jay Lethal. Let's try go hard. This is where you go hard. But we're getting another 4-way match with the women next week at Arthur Ashe, which is fine. But look, again, either promotion, either AEW or WWE, have their problems with their women's division. I don't think either of them do well. I really don't. I think they have strengths, but I don't think, look, again, we have other topics. I want to keep moving on here. But the thing here is that with this division here, with the opportunities that have appeared here because of the suspensions, because of what's going on backstage, so on and so forth, now's the time. Try some stuff out. We have an embarrassment of riches as far as the amount of talent that we have in AEW, and this is all we got. This is what we're doing. And I swear, as long as people don't get behind, as long as Tony Khan doesn't get behind the women's division and proves that he's behind them by giving them proper matches, proper time, more than one match a week, actual angles with multiple women, it's never going to get better. It's not going to get better. And are you kidding me? Athena, over the past couple of weeks, Athena, formerly known as Ember Moon, where everyone had the consensus. You know what? Ember Moon's promos, she's not very good. Take the stick away from her. She's not worth it. Ember Moon has been cracking her promos out of the park. Her promo with Jade, her promo again with Toni Storm, just doing fantastic work. It's ridiculous. I enjoyed this match. And I don't understand. I really don't understand the Britt Baker hate. I don't. I think it's a construct. Anyway, after the match, Athena and Storm get attacked by the heels, who won the match, by the way. Jamie Hayter runs in to take a chair away from Britt Baker, who was about to use it, but instead Jamie Hayter uses it on Toni Storm. And Britt and Jamie, they're still at odds with each other, though. We got Smart Mark Sterling backstage with Tony Nese and Josh the Goods Woods, and we're talking up a Woods versus Samoa Joe match on Rampage. And then finally, the main event, Grand Slam Tournament of Champions semifinal match. Bryan Danielson defeated Chris Jericho in a match that was unquestionably match of the night. Much better than their all-out match, and I think that's not even up for debate. I thought this was the best wrestled match of the show. It was the match that had the best story, the best continuity. It had passion, energy behind it. Like, this was unquestionably the best match of the show. Got the audience into it. But again, I think the Albany crowd stunk. Very, very, very good match. You know, not a match of the year or anything, but a very, very, very strong match and a great way to end the show. So we're getting BCC on BCC action next week at Arthur Ashe, Danielson, Mox. But if we're being completely honest with each other, we're going in cold because this was not a hot show. I think they did good work on the main event. Is this going to be able to buy out the, what is it, like 3,000 tickets or so that are left at Arthur Ashe Stadium? I don't know. Danielson versus Mox is going to be a hell of a match. We got it at Revolution, or was it Double or Nothing? But I'm not going to be disappointed. I could watch these guys wrestle each other again. Not a problem. I'm not complaining. You know, it's just, no, we got it at Revolution. At Double or Nothing was the Anarchy in the Arena. One of my favorite matches this year. Anyway. That was Dynamite. When exactly someone forgot to light the fuse. Nonetheless, despite the so-so Dynamite in and about itself, through the ratings were through the roof, and this is why I want to talk about it. The ratings were absolutely through the roof. The September 4th, and again, this is something that I don't necessarily talk about. I don't talk about ratings usually here on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. But AEW Dynamite on the September 14th edition, 1.175 million viewers, 0.39 in the demo, as compared to last week, which was another over a million again, just scraped by 1.035 million and a 0.38, just increase in both week over week. And as AK Germany 96 said in his members milestone message for 17 months, thank you very much for the 17-month membership, AK Germany, I appreciate it. He says, you can say those were some primo ratings last night. Yes, we can absolutely say they were primo. I like the ratings. Thank you for the for the membership. Thank you for the membership, AK Germany. But you see, the numbers they did are the biggest numbers. These are the biggest overall and demo ratings since Arthur Ashe last year, and we're in the same vicinity of the numbers that they were doing. Sorta, right? In the same ballpark that they were doing last year when CM Punk had returned and we were heading into Arthur Ashe and the company was really hot, right? But what makes it interesting is that this week was the test. This was the test for AEW in regards to last week's million. Would they be able to sustain it? Because last week the drama was fresh. You know, the suspensions were fresh. Everyone was like, was there going to be curiosity the whole way through, right? And frankly, this week, right, you looked at the numbers finally, and you get it. And not only did you score over 1 million in total viewership, and you actually went over much higher. You scored higher in the demo on top of that. So to me, here's the thing: no CM Punk, no Elite on this show. The embarrassment of riches is paying off. We've used this term here a couple of times, where you have so much top talent that if top talent drops away, you have a bunch of people you can heat up in a blink of an eye. As I said, also this is an opportunity to strap more people, to strap a rocket to some people, right, to the moon right now. This is the opportunity to do it as well. I already talked about that. I won't necessarily go rehash all those points, but it's very interesting to point that out, that we're doing the same numbers that people were like last year. It's like, oh, well, they're doing so hot. They're doing so good because CM Punk is here and he's still hot. CM Punk's not here. And 2 weeks, over 1 million in an increase week to week in both total viewership and the demo. And when you look at the quarter hours are essentially a flat line. They dip for the women's quarter hour, but then they come right back up for Jericho and Danielson. And not slightly up. No, we're right back up to where we were when the show started. It's nuts. So it's not just people missing the Elite. It's not just people missing Kenny Omega and the Bucks and CM Punk. We're getting, these are viewers that are tuning in and are watching the whole way through, that are staying to watch. I think that's significant. Raw this week? Well, it did 1.7 million, 1.709 million with a poor 0.44 in the demo. Now, and that makes them 7th overall for the night, for Monday night on the demo. Now, I know, football. You know, oh, it's Monday Night Football starting, and it's a big game and whatnot. Yeah, I couldn't tell you if it was a big game or a small game. I'm completely disconnected to the affairs of the National Football League. But you know, I know WWE always takes a hit, but this was a pretty big hit. This was a substantial hit. Last week they did just over 2 million, 2.054, with a very high demo, 0.58. They dropped 14 points in the demo this week. That ain't nothing. Sport. Again, I'm aware, and this is part of my brand. I am not, the guy you turn to for tip-top expert rating analyses, right? But over the past few weeks, WWE had received a spike in ratings, right? And there has been analysis put out there that the Triple H era has been good for WWE business so far. There has been improvements in key performance indicators since Vince was kicked out. Let's say what it was. So this is it's very interesting, but I can't help but think that a drop from 2.054 million to 1.79, that's a pretty big hit, and not one that I've seen that's historically as big. They always take a hit, but this big. And I mean, look, I will also agree, it's the first night of Monday Night Football. A lot of people tune into that. Maybe there will be some returns over the next couple of weeks, and honestly, I kind of hope so, because the more people are out there watching wrestling, the more demand there is, the more wrestling that we as wrestling fans are going to get. So I don't have a problem with this, and I actually hope that it continues on the upward trend for Raw on that point. So I'm not sitting here calling the death knell and saying, okay, we're done, we're doomed, finito, we're done. This isn't it. It's not what's going to happen. But I will invite all of you to keep abreast on this. Keep an eye on this. See how this situation develops over the next few weeks when the regular season of the NFL kicks in, And someone was telling me recently, because I was still under the impression, right? And again, chat, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here. Correct me if my informant is wrong here. But I was still under the impression that the Monday night games are marquee matches, right? Like big time matches. That because it's Monday night, right? Because when I used to watch the NFL, that was the thing. You'd have the biggest match of the week, biggest matchups. They'd all be scheduled for Monday nights, right? But it turns out that, from what I've been told, apparently now it's Sunday Night Football, which I wasn't even sure that existed. I didn't even sure that was a thing. I've been told that Sunday nights are now the major, are like the big clashes now. That's the one that's programmed really heavily. Okay. Could be. I don't know. Like I'm seriously like just going in here half blind. I don't know what I'm trying to say exactly. I was under the impression that Monday Night Football was like the game that you can't miss. It was kind of like with Hockey Night in Canada back in the day, like on Saturday nights. Those were the big hockey nights in Canada. That's why the show was called Hockey Night in Canada, right? And it's not necessarily the case anymore. Anyway, well, Hockey Night in Canada is a whole other mess as far as programming goes. But yeah, so I end up looking at that. And I'm like, okay. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be drawing as much. I'm just curious as to why it's It's just drawing that much, you know. Oh, okay. So Sunday night is the big one because it's on NBC on broadcast TV, whereas Monday nights is on cable. Okay, gotcha. Okay. So it's a bit of an apples to oranges situation. Like you can't really compare broadcast to cable, really. I don't think you can't really do that. But this all leads into a big question. Is Jean-Paul Levesque, is he doing good? Is the Triple H era doing good so far, right? You know, I've been watching Raw. I've been watching SmackDown over the past few weeks. You know, trying to see all these changes that Triple H has been incurring, and you know, trying to make my own opinion, right? And I encourage you to do it as well. You know, I have my opinions here, you know, and you don't have to take them as gospel, right? You absolutely should seek out and form your own thoughts over certain things. You know, that's you know, it's encouraged, it's expected, you know, to a degree. You know, I don't, you know, don't want to, you know, train a bunch of, you know, sheep. That's not what I want. You know, we appreciate critical thought here at the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. So when I see, you know, my Twitter timeline filled up with people saying, you know, oh, WWE is good again and so on and so forth, that's what I want to keep an eye on, because as you know, over the past couple of weeks, I have been sitting here. I have been sitting here telling you that I don't see the big changes in the Triple H era. I've seen a lot of window dressing. You know, let's say wrestling on TV again. We're wrestlers, Kevin Owens. We're wrestlers, Drew McIntyre. You know, we can say the names of the referees. You know, all these little things. It's window dressing, right? That's how I've been referring to it. The substance of the shows is still very much the same, right? And this is still going on right now. I think I still am not seeing how the regime change has transformed either show. I will even go as far as to say SmackDown is the same black abyss of dullness that it has been for months now. I haven't seen anything to compel me to continue to watch for a full 2 hours on Friday nights. Now, here, okay. Let's first of all say hello to Matt Ritter of the Smackin' It Raw podcast, which I will be joining this Friday, by the way, alongside Kristen Ashley, First Lady of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. We're going to be joining the Smackin' It Raw gang this Friday. Records live at 11 p.m. Central, 12 Eastern, midnight, basically. And so we'll be doing that this week. Otherwise, it will be available everywhere on your podcast application, so on and so forth. So be sure to check that out. It's nice to see you, Matt. Welcome. But I want to start by talking about like stuff that I enjoy, right? That is things that I like that happened this week on Raw. Gable, Gargano, thought it was super solid. I thought it was extremely solid. And you know, the fact that there are longer matches on Raw, I can't complain about that. You know, you watch wrestling for wrestling and you get more wrestling. That's what you want from a wrestling show, right? Logic would, you know, bring it that way. I think Seth Rollins is handling, ever since he's been feuding with Cody and afterwards, I think it's been fantastic. Some of the most compelling stuff he's done in a long time. I like how he's not just, you know, obnoxious cackling guy all the time. There's a darkness to it. I think it's great. I think he's a standout for what he's doing. No surprise, he's a Triple H guy. But I'm not bitching, like, you know, that's how it goes. Kevin Owens, of course, Canadian hero. He's been marvelously booked moving forward. Back to the prize fighter thing, letting him cut promos. That promo that he cut on Austin Theory this week, just golden stuff. Golden stuff. Had his bullet points, was ready to fire. Pew, 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 pew. Going like that. Pew, 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 pew. That's my impression of Kevin Owens doing a promo. He's just pew, pew, pew. He's shooting. Well, he wasn't shooting, but it was great. You know, it was as if he was shooting, but it wasn't a shoot. But you know what I mean, right? I hope you know what I mean, because sometimes I wonder if I even know what I mean. But Owens and his promo on Theory was great. And I like how Kevin Owens is often used as a centerpiece to reveal that there is a regime change. You know, that there is a change in how things have happened and how things are happening in WWE, right? Because he started, you know, I don't remember the promo verbatim, but he was calling Austin Theory. He was saying, you know, you are handpicked, right? You were the golden boy, right? To do all of this and all of that. But now, you know, we need to see something more out of you. You know, it's like Trips is here, and Trips probably not quite as invested into you as Vince was for some bizarre reason. But you know, it's like you're not Vince's pet project anymore, kind of thing. And there's a lot of things just very, very, and not even like, it's not even things where you go, oh, he went there. It's just like subtle, in the subtleties that Owens conducts his promos when he talks about this stuff, that you understand what he's talking about. So I think he's doing some fantastic work. But then you have the rest of Raw. Then you have the absolute rest of this show, where it's still a 3-hour show. So if I get one really good match where I'm like, you know what, Gargano, Gable, that fucking ruled. That was great. Finn Balor, Matt Riddle, good match, you know. But then everything sort of falls apart. And then you get stuff, you get Edge and Dominic. You get Dominic main eventing. What am I watching? The show is still full of promos. We have Dexter Lumis skits. We're getting skits of Dexter Lumis. Apologies to anyone who's really entertained by this, but this is not why I watch pro wrestling. To have pre-tapes of The Miz at his house with Dexter Lumis peeking in through the windows and no one on the camera crew alerting anyone to the fact that there's an intruder peeking in. And then Dexter Lumis breaks into his house where there are two young girls, like, you know, childs. And he breaks in to show a drawing while the Miz and Maryse drive away and the camera crew are there. No one calls the cops. No one does nothing. And he's the babyface. The stalker breaking into a home with two young girls that are just crawling into bed for the night while he's stalking mommy and daddy. He's the babyface. He's the babyface. Now, how is this not Vince logic? This is logic that we have sat through and have scratched our heads and go, I don't understand why this is happening for years at this point. Why is this even happening? Why are we broadcasting this? Why wasn't anyone alerted to the fact that he had broke into the home? Etc., etc., etc. And on top of that, haven't we already done this with Bray Wyatt? Hasn't Bray Wyatt already invaded the Miz's home and terrorized him? Wasn't it? Haven't we done this before with the Miz? And then I said, Dom Mysterio in the main event, and holy fuck, the promo, I couldn't look. First of all, credit where credit is due. Good call to have had Dom Mysterio do a pre-tape instead of trying to do this in front of an audience. Smart, because we know he's not ready to cut promos in front of a live audience. They would have eaten him alive. And yet here we are, despite the Bohemian Rhapsody-esque promo shot in the dark. Here we are, Dom Mysterio main eventing Raw, and we're supposed to cheer this kid on and go, gee willikers, you know, what a great opportunity for this young lad who is in his late 20s. We got to stop pretending like he's 19, fresh out of school, bright-eyed, looking towards the future. Hey, gee, aw, shucks, dad, kind of thing. He's hit his ceiling. We're good. There's nothing this kid has that makes him remotely compelling. And you see him in the ring with Edge, seasoned veteran, charismatic, has presence. He threw everything Dominic was doing under a huge shadow because Dominic should not be on Major League television wrestling for a billion-dollar company. He should not. It's embarrassing. And look, I like the Dominic Rhea Ripley stuff because it's memeable. And I think everyone that I know who likes this likes it with a heavy dose of irony because they know Dom is the opposite of a Dom because that's his energy. That's how he's presented. He's just a dude. He's a Jerry. For all you Rick and Morty fans, he's a Jerry. So I think it's funny, you know, with Rhea hanging around him, whispering in his ear, telling him what to do and bossing him around. But it's a meme. It's a meme because Rhea is so much more in control of her wrestling persona and her talent and her career than he is. It's embarrassing. She's carrying this. Yeah, maybe he'll be better as a heel. No, he won't. He won't. He doesn't have the chops. He has no charisma, no presence. We're done. And then the Damage Control situation. Of course, Damage Control won the titles on Monday. There was no surprise, no shock. They just wanted to do us a swerve at the tournament, right? And is there anything that spells out poor WWE booking more than their necessity to throw a swerve to keep us on our toes? It's so important. You got to keep them guessing all the time. Oh, you think it's going to go this way? We're going to do it this way. The tournament that y'all got excited for all the return of the mistreated women's tag team titles. There was, they're going to be treated so much better. They were put around the waists of literally transitional champions. For no reason for them to be transitional because the people who should have been champions in the first place were in the tournament. They were in the finals. I can't be the only one who sees this. I can't be. You created, you have a tournament to decide your champions. You decide to put them on a team that we're going to swerve, and it doesn't matter. In 2 weeks, we're going to give him back to the team that should have won in the first place. It's ridiculous. That is bad booking. Dom Mysterio being the centerpiece of a feud and main eventing Raw is bad booking. Dexter Lumis doing skits like that, bad booking. So for every great Kevin Owens promo, for every moment where I'm like, Seth Rollins, this shit rules, for every good match where Chad Gable is once again put in a position to put over a guy and to make him look like $1 million, work with a worker. Because I've seen people say, why does WWE hate Chad Gable so much? No. WWE absolutely loves Chad Gable right now. Because you will notice that every big match for every big wrestler that Triple H has brought back and wanted him to have a moment in the sun, to have a big moment, who did they trot out for him to fight? Chad Gable. Why? Because Chad Gable can wrestle a fucking great match. And that's all he's been doing over the past couple of weeks with every opponent he's had. So if anything, this is proof that Chad Gable is fantastic. We've known Chad Gable's been fantastic for years. It's just Vince couldn't get over the fact that he's so small. Shorty G. That's all he couldn't get over. I'm telling you guys, I'm not impressed. Now, in the words of one Triple H, Paul Levesque, Jean-Paul Levesque, depending on who you're talking to, I guess. This is a marathon, not a sprint. I'm not surprised that we're not seeing huge changes. I've been telling y'all for weeks that we should not expect huge changes to how WWE handle their programming, not before they renegotiate. Because that's what's upcoming. Renegotiation. Until then, status quo as much as possible. Convinced, 100%. So I'm not surprised. But at some point, I think we do have to sort of dial it back. These huge Triple H changes, I don't see them. Lots of window dressing, cosmetic stuff, things in these quirks and annoyances. Transforming NXT back to black and gold, just taking away the color run. You know, it's a fantastic move. Don't get me wrong, because I thought the branding for NXT 2.0 was shit. I thought it was terrible. So coming back, that's great. But people jumping up and down and saying, finally, black and gold is back. It's like, finally, everyone I liked in black and gold is gone. Everyone that made the black and gold is gone. And they made damn sure to get them out of there and to make sure. Don't you guys remember War Games last year? Team Black and Gold got their ass handed to them. So, sure, I mean, bring back the colors. Get rid of the colors. Bring back black and gold. Bring Poppy back. Have her come and sing Nikita Lyons' theme for a takeover. If you want to bring those back on top of that, you know, that's something I'd love to see. It's just, these are all cosmetic. Look, I keep saying the same word, but that's what it is. It's window dressing. It's, you look in and you're like, oh, all these things that annoyed me have changed, but the substance is still the same. And I don't know if we're going to see any real changes to Raw, and I'll say it again, to Raw or to SmackDown. And SmackDown is, honestly, it's the same show. It's the same thing. It hasn't changed. And trust me, we're dealing with the same company because do you guys feel it? Logan Paul versus Roman Reigns? You feel that one coming? Because it's coming. It's the same company. Let's just leave it at that. It was reported earlier this week that the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, I don't know if you remember those guys. It was reported earlier this week that they had sent out feelers to WWE to check out if WWE had an interest in joining the company when their contracts were up. Did you hear about that? There were rumors floating around since August. This came from Fightful Select, saying that the rumor had been floating around since August, with one source saying that they've been sworn to that the Bucks had asked to speak with someone in WWE management. But Fightful had been unable to confirm that. Meanwhile, sources close to the Young Bucks says they haven't been given any indication at all, and that particular course would likely be in a good position to relay the information, noting that they aren't sure who the Bucks would even reach out to in WWE. Now, Dave Meltzer, a couple of days later, says the Young Bucks have denied sending out feelers. I still think that's funny. It's still the funniest word, feelers. Don't you guys then suddenly see, like, antenna, just, wiggly with hairy strands, all around, that's every time I see the word feelers. That's what comes to mind. Anyway, Meltzer noted that the Bucks previously already negotiated with Triple H in 2018 before deciding to sign with AEW in 2019. So, if they wanted to get in touch with them, they probably didn't need anyone to get in there, an intermediary, right? They could have just, like, unless Trips changed numbers. So, if they wanted to get in touch with them, they wouldn't need an intermediary. And Meltzer also said that the Jacksons normally talk to people who are in WWE and says, quote unquote, that's not unusual. So I'm talking about this, but I'm going to tell you, all of you fine listeners right now, this is not news. It's not been, it is not news. It's not news. This is a pure, true to form gossip for whatever it is, okay? And it's not even that doesn't make it news, right? It's not even that, right? It's, you know what? If the Young Bucks have been suspended and they're thinking about, ending their contract or whatever, whatever, I hope they did talk to someone in WWE. You know what I mean? Because that is the business smart thing to do. You have a contract. Your contract's coming up. You want to see what do you have to offer? And maybe it's a very good offer, or maybe you're just going to go use it as leverage with your current employer to try and get better condition. This is business. Pro wrestling is a business. And you know who are very good at business? The Young Bucks. So wherever, first of all, like Chad is saying, of course they're going to deny it. Even if they did, they're going to say, no. We never talked to John Pavlovic. What are you talking about? We have no time. We are the Young Bucks. We have to do moonsaults into our swimming pool. Like, come on now. That is my exact representation. That is the Californian accent from Rancho Cucamonga. That's how they speak over there. Sort of a bit of a French Canadian slant there. But that's the thing. And whatever happened, the thing is that it doesn't matter, is what I'm trying to say here. Ultimately, my point, this is why I'm bringing it up. And they absolutely should be on the other end and chatting up someone in management and being, hey, how you doing? Oh, cool. How are you? Yeah. Because that's the business smart thing to do. It doesn't matter. And you know what? If they sent out feelers, I can't blame them. They absolutely should. Just like, and I've heard that their contracts are probably not up until 2024. Well, they're gonna contact WWE, and they might just end up going there. Everybody ends up going to WWE. Have you never? Are y'all new here? Everyone ends up working in WWE, so I wouldn't be surprised. Vince once said it famously, they all come work for me. They all eventually do. It's not Vince anymore, but still, the sentiment remains. And here's the thing, is that there's so much backstage shit coming out from all of this, right? Because the stuff about the Bucks and the feelers sort of degenerated into a whole other line of conversation, then with more stuff coming out from similar sources talking about, how Kenny Omega said I wouldn't hire 8 out of 10 of y'all when he was doing that pep talk, if you want to call it that. Kenny Omega allegedly would have said, if it were up to me, I wouldn't have hired 8 out of 10 of all of you, kind of thing, which is weird. And again, see, right now there is a PR war going on, and you always have to ask yourself, this is the thing, you always have to ask yourselves, why is this being leaked? Why are we, the general public, being informed of this? Why are we being told all of this? Why were we told that the Jacksons knocked down the doors to CM Punk's locker room and came in swimming? Then why were we told that CM Punk was the one who got all huffy because the Young Bucks just walked in and Kenny Omega saved his dog? Why is that? Why are these things being leaked? Why is the Young Bucks sending feelers to WWE being leaked? Ask yourselves why. These are all agendas. These are all people who are trying to win a PR war here. That's what's going on. That's exactly what's going on. And maybe the Bucks just talked to Cody Rhodes. And like Meltzer said, do you folks really think that wrestlers don't talk to each other across company lines? That they don't stay in touch, that they don't chit-chat? There's friends in working for other companies. We knew for a long time that the Bucks and Adam Cole were still having chats. What are we even talking about? Don't be daft. And don't get excited about this stuff. This happens all the time. And if anything, when I say don't get excited, I mean don't get mad, but you can get excited. It's exciting to think. And I will hammer this home till the end of time. It is exciting that we are in a position where wrestlers can leverage major contracts against each other. That they can call a big competitor and see if the grass is greener there, and that they can have a better deal and make more money and continue doing what they love. Instead of having just one company living under the fear of one man, right? And his whims. And if he decides to can you can't work anywhere else. You can't make a decent salary anywhere else. This is good. This is exciting stuff. But Warren, what will happen to AEW if the Bucks leave? We'll cross that bridge when we get there, but it's an insignificant conversation to have right now as to what would happen to AEW if the Bucks leave when there's no indication that the Bucks are leaving. They sent out feelers. They talked to someone in AEW, in WWE, excuse me. Who cares? I think, honestly, I hope they did. I hope they did. And then they come back to TK and they say, you know what? Trips made us this offer, so we want this. So, because this is, come back with some leverage. Trips is offering us this. Can you accommodate what we want, or are we going to Cody Rhodes this one too? We'll see. Contract season isn't yet. It's not just yet. Pro Wrestling Illustrated released its PWI 500 list for 2022, and it was received with open arms. Everyone was thrilled with it from top to bottom. The top 10 was welcomed with a hug, a peck on the cheek, and then everyone shared some tea, some nice buttery biscuits. Everyone just sat around, held hands until and looked up at the sky. Looked up at the sky, at the clouds, looking at the shapes of the clouds. You know, trying to see, you know, if any clouds resembled submission moves. You know, and having a good giggle out of it. Then everyone went home and had a good night's sleep. That's exactly how it went down. That's not at all how it went down. I'm sure if you were hanging around Twitter yesterday when the list dropped, it was, as they say in the business, a shit show. And what a shit show it was. But look, Roman Reigns, the top guy of the PWI 500 this year. And look, here's the thing. Here's what we should start off with. The criteria, right? Maybe we should get this out of the way first. The criteria for deciding the list. First of all, the evaluation period is between July 1st, 2021 and June 30th, 2022. So it's not like a 2021, it's not like just 2022 or so on and so forth, or the past couple of months. It's the full year starts July 1st of last year to June 30th this year. You have activity requirements where a wrestler has to have a minimum of 10 matches total wrestled during that evaluation period, or 6 matches in separate months. And then the ranking criteria. This is where it gets. This is where it becomes a little more selective, of course. In-ring achievements, so win-loss records, championships, tournaments won, that kind of stuff. Their influence, such as visibility, prestige within a promotion and or the industry at large, or even wider as well. The technical ability, quality of moves, matches, ring psychology, and then the competition, success against the most varied and highest quality opponents available. So that's the criteria. Some things very, very precise. Some things that become a little more subjective. So, out of that, Roman Reigns was selected to be the number 1 on the PWI 500 list. And in regards to that criteria, it is very, 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 very difficult to portray. It's very, very difficult to put anyone else because of his invulnerable title reign, the fact that he unified 2 world titles, and his undefeated streak on major shows, not so major shows. taking out all the top stars in WWE. Like, that's what it is. That's what Roman Reigns' 2021, well, his evaluation period, right, was. It's hard to see the opposite. That's exactly what happened. So it makes a lot of sense, if you ask me, of course. Kazuchika Okada came in at number 2, CM Punk at number 3, Hangman Adam Page at 4, Bobby Lashley rounds up the top 5. Then number 6, Cody Rhodes, Bryan Danielson at number 7, El Hijo del Vikingo at number 8, Big E at number 9, and number 10 is Jonathan Gresham. Now, I'm not necessarily going to run down all the reasons for each of these 10, what I think all the reasons are. First of all, I wasn't on the committee, first and foremost. I do have ties with Pro Wrestling Illustrated, but I'm not on the 500 committee. I understand a lot of the reasoning behind it, but I will agree that this is a little bit of this is a strange list to me. It's not one that if I was on the committee that I would outright endorse. It's, there's just a couple of very strange decisions in this top 10 as opposed to other wrestlers who did not make the top 10, who could be interchangeable, but who could switch places is what I mean. Not interchangeable, but literally change places. As much as Big E's reign was a big deal and people loved him and so on and so forth, his reign was very, very bland. It really was. He starts his reign off with a loss. It wasn't exactly a wrestling reign that was a championship reign that was full of confidence by the company. I think that you could easily have bumped in someone else there in the top 10. Jonathan Gresham did have a fantastic year, but was it a top 10 worthy year? Sure, he's carrying Ring of Honor on his back, but for a good part of the evaluation period. But holy smokes, there's some things that I can understand why. Cody Rhodes ending up high on the list, because of the significance of what he meant, of what his jump in the industry meant. I think that's something that can be argued. As high up as a 6, I don't know. Again, I wasn't there for those discussions, but I feel like my top 10 would have included a Jonathan Moxley, for instance. I really do. I think because I think let's see. I'm just going through a list here. I think Jay White. There's people, there's people on this list here who don't even have even remotely the accolades that Jay White had here. It's a strange list. It's a very, very, very strange list. A very strange top 10, I find, this year. I don't know what to tell you. I can't say I necessarily agree with it. I think there's a lot of arguments that happen around these lists. I understand them to a degree, but I don't quite get this one. I'm in complete agreement with Roman Reigns at number 1. I really am. Kazuchika Okada at number 2. Kazu's back. He's back. Great showing in the New Japan Cup. Won the G1, and I think there's even 2 G1s. No, he in the evaluation period this year, his G1 victory this year didn't count. It was last year's, right? And a great showing. Won the title at Wrestle Kingdom on top of that. Like, you know, I think Hangman deserves his spot in the top 10. Is a top 4 spot where he belongs. Should he be below CM Punk? I think, there's a lot of people who are like, the importance that's, I think CM Punk ranked very high, because let's not forget the meltdown, the shenanigans that are going on right now. These all happened outside of the evaluation period. We always have to keep that in mind. But I think his return, the importance, the significance that it had for pro wrestling, I think that was a big deal. And it's hard to imagine a bigger event than that, I know Kenny Omega lost a lot of his titles during the evaluation period, but he still held 3 titles during that evaluation period. Like, I don't know. Would have made him a top 10? I don't know. Maybe not, but, he's at 19 on this list, behind Adam Cole, who didn't win any major title. Look, it's strange, just odd stuff. Some weird decisions. I'm not gonna lie, But I'm in a position where it's hard for me to like completely trash it, because because I'm a part of the PWI Women's 150 committee. I was last year, and I was lucky enough to be invited again this year. And when we have our meetings, the discussions are very wide ranging. We cover a lot of stuff, and there's I can see how I can definitely see how these conversations were going for the 500. But like I said, I'm not privy to this information. I don't know, but it's not as easy as it seems to put a list together for the accomplishments across pro wrestling, across borders, like internationally, trying to bring everything together. It's not an easy task. And these, of course, they're meant to be discussion topics, and, not necessarily going to war over them. There's some people who absolutely lost their minds over this, and that's unforgivable, really, because it's just a list. It doesn't really matter. Ultimately, it's a discussion. It's a snapshot in time kind of thing. People accusing, and I count Kevin McElvany, editor-in-chief of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. I consider him a friend. And I saw people coming after him saying that Pro Wrestling Illustrated punished Jon Moxley for going to rehab by not putting him in the top 10. I really think it's time for people to, as the kids say, go outside and touch grass. Because it's that kind of smooth-brained nonsense that stops making these things fun, and that sucks the joy out of just trying stuff out. And I know for a fact that Kevin would not have that type of thought pattern. He goes, oh well, he went and sobered up. Well, too bad. Again, smooth brain nonsense. It's an interesting one this year. I'm not going to lie. It's an interesting one. I don't agree with most of the top 10. What would be mine? Hey, you know what? Maybe I'll do that for the members. I'll do my what I think my PWI top 10 would be. I'll do it for the members on Going Broadway, where I will probably also end up talking about the Taka Michinoku 30th anniversary debut match. The show, not just a match. What do they call it? Taka Taichi Despe Mania. That happened earlier this week in Tokyo. Fun little card. It's a 2-card match. It's a 2-match card, excuse me. An extraordinary match. Extraordinary Joshi tag match. Maika and Mirai defeating Aoi and Tomaka Inaba, which was fantastic. And of course, that insane main event of El Desperado and Jun Kasai. Just match of the year. And if you want to hear me talk about it, you can join me tomorrow, most likely tomorrow. Going Broadway for the members. I'm doing my PWI top 10. If Warren Hayes had complete control, what would he do? And we'll talk about that card as well. We'll be doing that. But there's one thing, look, just before we go on to the last topic, we do have to take a moment here to talk about El Desperado's absolutely phenomenal breakthrough 2022 year. It started in 2021. It started in 2021. Wasn't it 2021? Or hang on, am I getting my dates mixed up? His match with Hiromu Takahashi. Was it last year or was it the year before? Yeah, the big one. Yeah, yes, the big one. 2021 in fall of last year. It started there, where people started to see what one of us were like, hey, we got to keep an eye on this kid. This guy's going to be something. Fantastic match there. Next thing you know, he's being pushed as one of the stars of the junior division in New Japan. But even on top of that, doing things that most juniors don't get the chance to do. He had a match with Kazuchika Okada, the New Japan Cup, that was fantastic this year. He's wrestling Jon Moxley in a main event of a New Japan of America show. And then, on top of that, he's having a match of the year. Some would argue another match of the year, just a couple of nights ago, against deathmatch specialist, legend, Jun Kasai. Extraordinary stuff. And yeah, as Chad is saying, the tag team match with Dookie versus Kasai and Hanma. Just great stuff. He is having a breakout year as a guy where you go, this guy is more than a junior. This guy has something special. He has it in him. This is the foundations of something great. Now the question, of course, is always going to be, will Gedo see it, right? But I think at some point, Gedo signs off on a lot of these things, right? So of course he's like, well, he probably sees that there's something special. He unquestionably knows that this guy is a worker. He's a hard worker and he's spectacular. He puts on a great show every time. He's one of my favorite wrestling scumbags. I love El Desperado to bits. Just fantastic stuff. And this year was a breakout year for him. And it's something that we are going to have to put on the grand board of wrestling history when we look back at El Desperado's career in maybe 5 or 6 years, and he'll probably have achieved summits And we'll all look back and be like, look, the foundations for everything we're seeing here were all laid in 2022. In a year where he just had extraordinary match after extraordinary match, and with top guys, not just wrestling Master Wato, not just wrestling Robbie Eagles, no disrespect to either of those guys, not just having a good time in the juniors division and having, fun little tag team matches with Uncle Kanemaru against fucking Taguchi and Master Wato, right? Not just that. Establishing himself as a top tier, top level star. This is where we at with Deseperado. If you want to hear me talk more about it, become a member of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel. Join us on YouTube. The video will be up there for members only. But I do want to wrap things up to talking about everyone's favorite promotion, Control Your Narrative. That came in, hitting the ground running in 2022. A pristine, perfect business model that every other upcoming wrestling promotion should follow to a T. This is unquestionable. But it's from somehow due to the grace of God, that's the only, it's an act of God here. That's the only way to explain it. Control Your Narrative is probably done. Last week, and I talked about it I actually talked about this for the members last week, if you were there, on last week's Going Broadway. Last week, people were getting emails. They were getting emails from Control Your Narrative, telling them that they were going to be refunded for the shows that they were canceling from the tour that they were supposed to have this fall. All of those shows have been canceled, and they were saying, and the only way in the email they were saying, the only way we can refund you is by sending you a check. And I'm like, oh, the money's all spent. The money's all spent. There's nothing left in the war chests. We're done. This is it. Finito. We're sending checks and none of them are going to clear. Anyway. And I had even talked about how all the socials on controlyournarrative.co, their main website, the Twitter account, the Facebook page, they were all being transferred. They had all been transferred to EC3's socials. Now, got a little juicy tidbit here off of Fightful.com where EC3 says, quote, Control Your Narrative will not go on as planned. He was speaking to Steve Fall of NBC Sports Boston. Again, this is off of Fightful that I'm reading verbatim here. EC3 discussed how plans for Control Your Narrative have changed since Killer Cross and Braun the Titan Strongman re-signed with WWE. Quote, this is Ethan Carter III speaking here. I am a professional and a businessman. When we talk about wild, out of the box, something that may or may never work, we're under the agreement and understanding that this is a business and the time will come where there might be a decision and we have to do what is best for ourselves. There is no fault, dislike, or regret with that. As far as do I know talks are going on? We don't need to talk about that because in my mind, talks are ongoing all the time with everybody. Any second you can get that call. Any second it could happen. It's not something to worry about. With Cross, he's so phenomenal. I have such a deep fondness for his creativity, respect, work ethic, all those things. I would have loved for us to be a three-headed monster of creating crazy. At the same time, we had no guarantees. We're not funded. If this works, it'll be great. If it doesn't, whatever we do together is going to be great. If we revisit later, it's going to be great. Everything's going to be great, guys. What are you talking about? We all have to take care of ourselves and things like that. It's a testament to control your narrative because two guys are going to be pegged as WWE World Champion material in this moment. They came through the process, he said. Now, just real quickly before we get to the meat of the situation here, okay? Just a quick. Is EC3 saying here, is he taking credit for Control Your Narrative, creating these two WWE World Championship material talent here? Is that what he's saying here? It's a testament. Let me reread that again just to make sure, okay? Because it's a testament to Control Your Narrative because two guys are going to be pegged as WWE World Champion material in this moment. They came through the process. Because to me, this is what he's saying. This is what it sounds to me. Well, Create Your Narrative saw the potential world title material in these two guys, and whereas both are champions in WWE, and you know and of course, H saw the potential in Killer Kross. He made him champion in NXT. Anyway, let's continue. We're dealing with the ramifications now because when you lose a top name and a draw, the business has to be reevaluated, especially from an outside perspective of our tour. Who was the draw? Braun Strongman? Was he the draw? Was he the draw? If he was the draw, why did that one Control Your Narrative show that they did, where they had all the WWE, you know, when they did the rant room, why were there like about 100 people? If he's that much of a draw, who's the draw? Killer Kross? Killer Kross never drew a dime in his life. Braun Strowman never drew a dime in his life. Who's the draw? We're talking. Did they have like Bray Wyatt? You could argue Bray Wyatt drew money. Did they have him and he just never showed up on a show? I don't know who they're talking about. Who's the draw? Braun? Is this what we're talking about? Let's continue. We try to salvage an opportunity from some of these dates to be maintained, but as is, it was booked based on that availability, which is no longer there. That's okay. Small infrastructure. It's what we are. Is that what we are? This traveling promotion? We could be. Are we ready to be? I don't know. Not allowing the legs to get kicked out underneath. Realizing we can have that. That's a luxury, but we need to be. Christ, he's difficult. I don't understand what he talks about. He's realizing we have that. That's a luxury, but we need to build a foundation of what this is, and that's new, youthful, different, undiscovered, or reinventing. I do feel bad Kross didn't get some giant thing like I wrote for Adam because I was so fond of his efforts and respect that I didn't do that. What is he talking about? But Adam was more on the business end than Kross was initially. If we were 33 business partners, we should have been, but we're not, and that's okay. I don't know. I lots of stream of consciousness stuff going on here. Look, Control Your Narrative is not going to be what it was. This is what I expect. This is what I'm thinking. Because, you know, Ethan Carter III, right, of his name, will not let this die. And why should he? Because the whole Control Your Narrative thing he'd been doing all by himself, you know, when he left WWE, when he was fired from WWE, I should say. And, you know, he wanted to take back control of his thing. Like, this is something that he's been doing for a while. It's all his creative. Has all his fingerprints over it. It's fine. And I think it's going to continue as a stable of guys. Going from promotion to promotion. We saw them show up at the NWA show. I don't know if there's going to be any follow-up on that. And who cares? It's the NWA. Like, it doesn't matter. You know, it's,
Oh, yeah.
you know, Billy Corgan could decide to do something completely different, you know, just drop everything. Like, it doesn't matter. But, you know, EC3 was there, and, you know, the Control Your Narrative B Squad was there with him. And I think that's what it's going to be. It's going to be EC3 with a group of dudes, and they're going to show up in promotions, and they're going to control their narrative. That's what they're going to do. Not unlike, you know, 440 on the indies, you know, stuff like that, which I think is fine. Don't get me wrong. I think it's fine. Doesn't bother me. But here's the thing. I think overall, this is like the second time I talk about Control Your Narrative on the show. Maybe the third time. And I'm pretty sure I made it a point to not necessarily really discussing it until we get some shows and we see some stuff going, and then I actually get to watch it so I can actually comment on it. But there's too much good wrestling out there. Why would I subject myself to this? I talked about it when they opened. Like, look, luck to anyone who wants to anyone in wrestling who's trying their best to get a payday. Luck, best of luck. But what came to pass happened because they overshot their position / popularity, thinking they were bigger than they were, thinking that Braun Strowman was a draw, apparently, whereas conventional logic would have you go, what has he ever drawn, right? So overshooting their importance, their popularity, to the point that they attack and insult and go after potential customers online. And lo and behold, it backfired on them. Because let's not forget, we will not remember Control Your Narrative, the promotion, because of its high quality matches, its top tier booking. It's not what we're going to remember it. We're going to remember it for Braun Strowman and EC3 and Austin Aries attacking fans online, calling them idiots, calling them marks, being standoffish and attacking fans instead of being accepting, instead of just being, hey, let's get in here and let's build something together. We need you fans. Instead it's like, y'all are marks, motherfuckers. Y'all, you tough guys behind your keyboards. That's all he would ever talk about. You'd never hear about the matches. You'd never hear about the shows. You'd always just hear about them going off on fans. And lo and behold, imagine that. Imagine insulting a potential customer base leads to not having business. Gee willikers. Imagine that. That's so what I think they need to teach that in business school, because that makes a lot of sense. Holy shit. Who thought that would happen? But for real though, like, I'm being doing a bit here, but I believe that to be true. They just went after fans a little willy-nilly. Sure, fans, go after them, they poke fun at them. But the more that they'd go hard on the fans, the harder the fans would come back. And even people like me, who would probably have maybe a more balanced opinion and not necessarily, I'd sit there and go, all right, well, this is a point and laugh situation. I got nothing for these guys. Got nothing. These are guys who left Vince's system bitter, saying to themselves, you know what? We were overtaken by one guy who didn't know what to do with us. And now we're going to show that we can do better. We're going to prove that we can do better because we're great talents, kind of thing. They came out and they said, we're creating a promotion. It's not an indie. Oh God, it's not an indie. We don't want to sully ourselves, calling ourselves an independent promotion. No. We've got hundreds of dollars from our investors in this. They came out defying anything when they should have been looking for some good faith, because there was good faith for a lot of these guys, because no one thought them being fired by WWE was a good idea. And Braun Strowman, no one understood. And everyone was like, sure, he had made comments about indie wrestlers in the past, and we're like, but ultimately you're like, no, this all stinks. Good faith could have been out there ready for them, but no, they decided to go on the offensive, which I think was an extension of how WWE treated its fans regardless. You know, when I see Braun Strowman on, without the PR machine behind him saying, you can't tweet, don't say this, don't say that, unleashed, free from the chains, and the first thing he does is go after the fans. I think it's a testament of what goes on, or at least what went on behind the scenes with how WWE perceives its fans as an obstacle, as a countercurrent to telling their stories. You will all remember Seth Rollins talking about how the Thunderdome allowed them to tell stories the way they wanted, right? Without all these pesky fans. That's not what he said, but that's what it meant. Without all these pesky fans in the audience booing or not reacting. In the Thunderdome, we can do what we want. The fans have not been for a long time in WWE a true component of the show. They've been perceived as an obstacle. That's why Vince was so pissed off and adamant of making Roman Reigns the top babyface, even though the fans rejected it. Vince kept his nose down and went forward. So I can see that kind of stuff rubbing off onto a guy like Braun Strowman, who's like, fuck the fans. Vince always said the fans are, keep us from what we're doing. Well, fuck the fans. Those who like us will come to us. Well, fuck the fans. I also think it's really funny that these guys were all like, control your narrative, do what you want, your creativity is yours, and all the, all these great principles. But the minute the money called, the minute the money sniffed them, they're like, oh, well, gotta go control my paycheck now. Look, it will not go on as planned, is what he says. We're not outright saying control your narrative is dead, because it's not. But I think whatever shape it was supposed to take just ain't happening, pal. And that's the end of the weekly wrestling inspection. And that's the end of the weekly wrestling inspection. Why am I so bad at doing this when I've been doing this for like 5 years, 4 years? Why am I still so bad at this? Listen, I appreciate everyone coming out, hanging out tonight here on this week's edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show live on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes. Look, if you're still here and you haven't given the video a like, do it. Do it, please. Thank you so much. Leave a comment at the same time. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what's going on in professional wrestling as well. And Thank you for listening on your favorite podcast application. If that's what you're doing right now, leave an Apple review, leave a 5-star rating on Spotify. All that kind of stuff helps out. Thank you all so very much for joining me tonight. I will be back next week, and it will also be very exciting to talk about all the ins and outs of pro wrestling. Hope you have a great rest of your evening, great weekend, and I'll see you next time.